Spider-Man Brand New Day has a ton of good, along with some room for improvement, but I think another recent Marvel movie did it better. And when I say it, I mean the emotional through line of Brand New Day is eerily similar to that of another recent entry in this phase. But before we break it down, let's get into the good. Out of all the recent Spider-Man flicks, this one felt the most like a film, especially when compared to a COVID-era Marvel movie. Here, the cinematography, the colors, the shadows, it was all deeply rich and satisfying to watch. The visuals and sound effects were utilized in a way that made web slinging feel more visceral than usual. With the shadows, I love how Spider-Man/Peter Parker's face was frequently split into light and darkness. There was a clear representation of his inner conflict. Spider-Man Brand New Day was much more grounded, at least in terms of locale, and New York City felt like a much more appropriately sized character. The city and its inhabitants were alive and real. And when it comes to Spider-Man, a vibrant NYC is critical. Brand New Day went back to these all-important roots, which I appreciated. Let's get to the acting. This felt like a huge step up from previous entries. I've always thought Tom Holland was a pretty great actor, but he really hit his stride here. His performance was more nuanced and tortured, and I hadn't really seen that from him before. I was equally as impressed with Zendaya. Out of all of her Spider-Man performances, I felt like this one had the most range. Finally, the emotion. In comparison with The Odyssey, that was a movie that I respected, but I didn't necessarily love. It made me think, but it didn't make me feel something. This movie-going experience was different. I laughed, I cried, I felt connected to the characters. And while I'm not sure I loved it, I definitely liked it. Now let's get to some of the not so good, and now we're getting into some spoiler territory. So you've been warned. Concerning the Holland series, this was absolutely a more personal Spider-Man movie, and the themes and lessons were valuable and easy to spot. The challenges with transitioning to adulthood, not knowing who you are and having to face that head on, the pain of loneliness and the need for a community, and someone just in your corner no matter what. But I couldn't help but notice some parallels, namely with the plot of Yelena and Bob in Thunderbolts. Much like Peter, Yelena had become isolated by the death of her sister, Peter with the death of Aunt May and literally everyone he knew because of the mass amnesia. Bob was a captive of the bad guys who wanted to harness his powers for their own desires. Same with Jean Grey, even down to the glass cage. Yelena and Bob have to grapple with their personal traumas to form a bond, a relationship, a community, literally and figuratively breaking down walls throughout the process. Peter and Jean do the same. Now, I won't say it's bad just because there are similarities. This feels more like an overall tonal shift in the MCU as opposed to a borrowed plotline. But it was hard to not feel like I was watching something I'd already seen. And in my opinion, it was executed more effectively in Thunderbolts.